AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet, with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are invited to comment on my comments, whether you agree with me or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated coast to coast across the United States of America. Coast to coast, talking about Hawaii. Across the continental United States of America to more than 12 million additional households. I'm your host, Gary Baumgarten.
Just over a century ago, there was an isolated kingdom called Hawaii, an independent nation with a parliament, its own flag, a national anthem, and a beloved queen, Liuokalani. But in 1893, she was removed from her throne with the help of the United States Marines. It was a great loss to her people.
If you can imagine something within your own culture that is tremendously important to you, that is suddenly done away with, just totally ripped out and gone. If you can imagine yourself relating to something like that, that's what we went through.
Well, that's one viewpoint, and that's the viewpoint of our guest today. There is a movement that argues that Hawaii is not lawfully one of the 50 states of the United States. Our guest today is David Keanu Sai. He declares himself the acting interior minister of the Hawaiian Kingdom government, which he says is operating within the occupied state of the Hawaiian Islands. Sai argues that since the Spanish-American War, his nation has been under prolonged occupation by the United States of America. He says the Hawaiian Islands reluctantly serves as the headquarters of the U.S. Pacific Command, the largest of 9 unified military commands of the United States Armed Forces. In 2001, the Hawaiian Kingdom government filed a complaint against the United States with the UN Security Council over what it calls the U.S. occupation of the Hawaiian Islands. I welcome David Keanu Sai to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com. Aloha.
Aloha, Gary.
I was hoping to get a traditional aloha in return. So, shall I refer to you as David or Keanu? How do you like to be called?
I've been going by Keanu ever since I was an infant.
That's what I heard. Well, Keanu, welcome to the program. When one of our regular listeners to this show suggested, she is in Hawaii, that I interview you, I said, what are you talking about? Now, there are those who would suggest that I am a typical American who doesn't know much about history. And we played just a little bit of a recording which would suggest that the United States illegally grabbed the Hawaiian Islands from their independent structure and made them a part of the United States of America. But wasn't there a judicial means upon which Hawaii became ratified as a state in the Union?
No, actually not. It doesn't exist.
Well, just you declaring it doesn't exist doesn't help much, given the fact that the rest of the world recognizes that there are 50 states in the United States of America. Don't you face like an insurmountable battle here to try to cede from the United States?
Well, that's a good point. It's you might say that history has been manipulated to serve a certain purpose, but the historical facts speak otherwise. So it's not necessarily moving toward secession, but rather how do you define secession? Because in order to secede, you needed to have been ceded in the first place, meaning forming a part of the Union. And we find that there is no evidence. There were actually 2 attempts to cede Hawaii to the United States by treaty. A treaty of annexation in February of 1893, and a second attempt by a treaty of annexation in 1897. Both treaties failed to receive ratification by the Senate because of the implication of the United States Marines in overthrowing the Hawaiian government. Now, during the Spanish-American War, what ended up happening was Francis Newlands from Nevada, he's a representative from Nevada, he submitted a joint resolution for the annexation of Hawaii. And that was submitted to the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, and they began to take testimony before putting it on the floor. Captain Alfred Mahan from the U.S. Naval War College and General Schofield and other military officers were giving testimony as to why Hawaii needs to be taken as a matter of military necessity. This was during the Spanish-American War, because the Americans were fighting the Spanish not just in the Caribbean, in Cuba and Puerto Rico, but also in the Philippines and Guam. Those are Spanish colonies. And Hawaii became a major interest regarding necessity in the eyes of the United States military. And what then happened is that the joint resolution was passed by the Senate and House and signed by the President at that time, William McKinley. The problem we have here, though, is that a joint resolution is an internal law of the United States that has no effect beyond the borders of the United States. A congressional resolution can no more affect the people in Montreal than it could affect Hawaii at that time, both Canada, well, not Canada, well, Hawaii at that time being an independent and sovereign state. So you see a lot of justification for the seizure of Hawaii, and then from 1900 on, you see a government established here by Congress, creating a government for the territory of Hawaii. And then later they changed that territory into a state in 1959, but this was all congressional authority. We still are left with the problem. Congress has no extraterritorial force. That's the problem. Now, if you look at international law and what is called state continuity, much in the same way as the Baltic states, despite a government being overthrown, a state or a sovereign state can still exist. And the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, which were occupied by Russia, were deoccupied in 1991. And their basis of restoration was on the theory of state continuity. So